Tell me about this camera, Caleb.
Yeah, I have some confessions to make. So remember how I said that, for this episode, we'd probably have the camera back because I was getting it repaired and it was, on the way, almost there. Well, I did get it repaired, actually. It was fully repaired. They got it back. I didn't have to pay for it, which is funny because, it's like I had dropped it by breaking it. That was not covered by the warranty. In fact, in their initial assessment, they were all like, "Oh, by the way, we're gonna probably pay for this, but when we do the repair, if we find out that it was because you dropped it or any physical damage, then you're gonna have to pay for it." And I was like, "All right, let's hope you don't inspect too hard." And they didn't. They paid for it. They sent it back, and I was like, "Peek." I plug it in, and I watch as the screen melts again, and all the pixels go like, and it dies again, and it stops working. I was like, "What? Wait, but I just got it." And I'm just like, what went wrong? And it was then that I found out the truth of what actually happened on the lighthouse day. Flashback, black and white, those days, the days when we lost the camera, the Elden days, if you will. We had been under the assumption that what had happened that day is I had broken the camera, of course, by dropping it. That had not happened. Something else had broken, not the camera. The camera had survived that fall. I'm going to add some dramatic music behind my wording here because this is intense,
I'm fucking holding on. I'm ready.
Right. The thing that had broken was the battery that I had inside of it. The battery that's like a dummy battery connected to an outlet. And what had happened is because the battery had broken, it was sending extra electricity into the camera. So what happened is after it had dropped and I picked up, turned it on, the processor just immediately started melting because all the extra electricity was going in there. So I get the repaired camera back, and because I didn't realize that the battery was the fucking issue, I just did the same thing and melted the processor a second time. So now I have to try to get it repaired and hope that they don't.
But why didn't they fix that?
Because the battery was not sold by them. It was like I bought it separately. And normally, I've been using it for like over a year. It works fine. That is a risk with dummy batteries, but because the battery had been the thing that was broken, I didn't send it back to them.
So did the battery break when you dropped the camera?
Yes. Yeah, the battery is what had broken.
So you still broke it by dropping the camera?
I broke the battery, and then the battery melted the camera after. But when the drop didn't do anything to the camera. It was 30 seconds later when I turned it on and was like silently watching as the screen was melting. And that also explains the melting thing, because I was still confused about that both times, because before it fully went black and just wouldn't turn on, I could see like pixels like all going like from the center, like blacking out and like literally melting on screen. I was like, that's a weird effect. I guess that's just what happens sometimes. No, it was actually literally melting the processor in real time. Like I was watching it actually melt through the little eye hole. Yeah. So anyway, moral of the story is it has to get repaired again, and I hope that they accept it and don't reject it for me clearly being stupid and breaking it twice the same way. Yay!
Awesome.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's just
so we're back to this thing.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. Someday. Someday I'll actually have my like nice camera fixed again.
Yeah.
Someday.
That'd be so nice.
Anyway, in the meantime, I guess we can.
Because we look like amateurs right now.
That is true. This is amateur hour times 1,000. Except for my epic editing skills and such. I was going to have an edit there. For audio listeners, I'm awesome.
Can you please do one of those editing things where it's like it puts on like the sunglasses that like just fly into screen?
I can now.
Then it's like it says like poggers and like word like word art with like flames.
Oh man, look at that. Audio listeners, you're really missing out. Oh my god. Yeah, this is why you watch it on YouTube. You get the cool edits.
Yep.
You just got some cool music though. So I mean, I guess that's also all right.
Is the cool music you going
yeah, with a little backing like bass. That's it. Okay. Just that.
A little snare.
Yeah, a single like little drum tap. Little tap. Love tap.
Period.
If you will. Anyway, let's roll the intro just to get it out of the way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cynical Cinephiles podcast. I am your host, Caitlin.
And I'm the other host on the same couch, Caleb. That's my name.
So, Caleb.
Nice meeting you. Hello, stranger. Why are we on this couch together? That's crazy.
I have some really exciting news for you.
What is the exciting news?
We're actually watching The Wonder.
Oh my gosh, I'm just hearing of this now.
After a month.
It's been so long.
No one cares anymore. No one cared.
No one ever cared. It's so funny because my hype for this movie has gone like through a fucking roller coaster of emotions, because originally I was at the very like neutral. I was like, I could not care one way or the other. I'm not hyped, but I'm not hyped. And then time passed, we didn't do the episode and no one talked about it. I was like, okay, now I'm not hyped. Fuck this shit. Then we got closer, like a month has passed. We're finally gonna do the episode. I'm like, okay, I'm hyped again. Yeah. We're finally there. And then I start watching the movie and I was like, I don't know if I'm hyped. Then the opening scene played and I was like, all right, I'm hyped again.
One could even say that it's a wonder we even recorded.
It really is, to be honest. Who expected us to actually get to the wonder, honestly?
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We're back full circle with another Florence Pugh movie.
True. It's just all back together.
I put on makeup today on the off chance that Florence Pugh watches the podcast.
This is her favorite movie she's ever been in. She's like, I gotta know
what the people are saying.
There's only like 4 reviews out there, so we're gonna be one of the 4 now.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty hype.
Honestly?
All right, Caleb, I feel like you should give us an introduction today. So give us a synopsis.
Oh, fuck me. Okay. I'm not going to remember the names of a lot of the characters, but it's fine. I'll remember some of them. Okay. One name. I just Anna, but okay, so.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. What's Florence Pugh's character's name?
Lib.
So Lib, right? She is a nurse.
Yes.
That
point. Is correct.
She is a nurse in this one. All right. So she's a nurse and she's coming into this like town. Is it in Ireland? Right? Small little Irish town because there's this girl.
It's immediately after the fast. So we're not after the fast, after the famine. The Great Potato Famine.
The Irish famine. Yeah. So she's coming in and this girl has not eaten for 4 months. I should also include right here, even though we're lax with the trigger warning sometimes. Topics of eating disorders and eating in general, I will just a brief trigger warning for just in case.
I also want to insert a trigger warning for religious trauma.
Yep, definitely that, and maybe some SA as well.
Yes, yeah. And SA.
Yeah, just like a few trigger warnings. I feel like this movie surprisingly gets pretty heavy with it, and I was like, okay, yeah, they're dealing with this pretty upfront, so I think it is fair to include all those triggers. Anyway, but
like a bullet list,
a whole checklist. If you just be warned. But yeah, so she has not eaten supposedly for 4 months. She's blessed by God, so she doesn't need to eat. She eats manna from heaven. Bible stuff. And yeah, basically this nurse is sent there by like a council of like, what, doctors? Or are they just, one of them's a doctor?
One of them's a doctor, one of them's a priest, one of them is the landlord who owns the house.
Men.
Yeah.
Just men. Fucking men. Stupid ass men. And they're like, watch. Don't do anything else. Just watch and see.
Because they want to substantiate the claims.
They're like, this is going to be the next development in science, probably. You got to watch to see for sure. And she does so. And the whole movie pretty much is her watching to see if this girl does really receive manna from heaven or if she's blatantly being given food by her family. That's like pretty much the general premise.
Yeah.
Though, which is interesting, I think.
I think it's interesting. Yeah. I do think, I want to point out that this is originally a book by Emma Donoghue, who wrote The Room, which was also made into a movie. It's the movie
just
starring...
Room, not The Room.
Room. Sorry. I do that with Wonder and The Wonder. Those are 2 different movies.
There's separate ones.
It's so confusing if you try to Google anything about the movie because it brings up Wonder, which is, again is a totally separate
People
thing.
Trying to find like this Brie Larson movie, they just end up with Tommy Wiseau. They're like, what is this?
No, so Room stars Brie Larson, and that is also an Emma Donoghue book.
Yep.
I read the book. This is the first time that we have covered a movie based off of a book that I distinctly went out and read.
Let's go.
And I was really excited because I do like this reading challenge, as you are well aware, because I don't shut the fuck up about it.
Half your personality.
Half of my personality is the 52 book club.
we love.
And one of the mini challenges, and it was for June, which shows you how behind I am, was to read a book set in somewhere you would want to visit. And so I picked up this book because it takes place in Ireland.
Why do you want to go to Ireland?
Because that's where my family ancestry is from. And it's beautiful. Okay, let's not offend
I'm also
all
Irish,
of
so
Ireland right now.
I'm most
Specifically Northern Ireland.
Yeah, fuck the Irish. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I just think it's like not that interesting.
I mean, like everyone's Irish.
Also, it's like, would you want to visit like Ireland in this time specifically?
No. But it's set in Ireland, and also I already owned it.
Why did you? So how did you end up getting the book? Did you just like see it and you're like?
I go to a lot of thrift stores, and so I like to check out the book section in all the thrift stores I go to because I can typically find some pretty decent stuff for like $2-3.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a book of the month book back in 2016. And book of the month just sends you a book every month. It's what it sounds like. And so they're really nice, like hardcover editions of it.
Ooh.
And so when I saw it, and I saw that it was Emma Donoghue, because I've been wanting to read Room, I was like, well, I mean, even if I hate it, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would like to say that I really like the movie. Going into it, this is going to be a fairly positive review for me.
Yeah.
The book is good. However, imagine the exact same story with almost nothing else added to it, but it takes you 8 hours to read it instead of an hour and 40 minutes to watch it. It is just very slow going, because I personally didn't feel watching the movie like they really left anything out. I feel like it stayed relatively true to the book, minus a few things that I will bring up later.
All right.
But it stayed relatively true to the book. But it took me like 8 to 10 hours to read it.
See, now I'd be curious to read the book myself, just because a lot of the things that I think I lean more positively than not, for sure. But some of the things I was like less satisfied with was, I assumed, were given more like depth in the book. So if it wasn't a whole lot cut out.
We'll talk about it. I'm interested to see what your criticisms are, to see if I can like help with that.
That's fair.
From like the perspective of how the book was written.
Yeah. I mean, so firstly, I have a question. Is the book written in first person?
No, it is written in third, but so there's two different types of third person. There's the omnipresent and then the other one. And I don't remember which one's which, but essentially one of them follows the perspective of like multiple different characters, but all in third person. And then the other one only follows one character in third person, right?
Oh, yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And
it's
so
like focalized through the eyes of one character.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this was third person, but only focused around Lib's character.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, okay. So that's my main thing that I feel like I didn't love by the end. And this was mostly, I didn't start, like, okay. Here, I want to... It was funny because starting it, I was not thinking I was going to like it. Then the opening scene threw me for a fucking loop, and I was like, okay, this is wild. Interesting.
I fucking hated the opening scene.
I just didn't think that was going to happen. By the end, I don't love the opening scene in retrospect. I thought it was because they were going to do something totally different, and I was like, wait, what are we doing here? They didn't really do much with it in the end. But the opening scene, for those who do not know, is what? It's on like a film set.
Yeah, it's like a backwards perspective of a film set.
Yeah.
And it shows, and when I first started watching it, I was like, this book takes place in 1860. Like, what the fuck is going on? There's like concrete walls or scaffolding. I'm like, what is happening? And then the narrator, who plays Kitty in the movie, starts talking about stories and how everyone has a story and how we're going to be introduced to this group. It was very Shakespearean, where it was like, we're introduced to this group of players. Like, stop using the term players, okay? Like,
it's like you're watching the movie, The Wonder.
This is the beginning of a film called The Wonder.
Right. And it's like, it was super weird. And then it like focuses in on Florence Pugh's character in a tavern eating. And then as it goes into that shot, as it closes out around her, then you don't get any more of that until the end of the movie, where the movie ends and then it backs up and rotates the camera back to Kitty's character wearing modern clothes. And then she just was like, this was The Wonder. Like,
it's so bizarre.
It's
there was
so
also
fucking weird.
A couple random fourth wall breaks in like the middle of the movie that.
But I felt like a couple of them were very well done. But
maybe
specifically there was one that was really well done.
Which one?
Anna's. Anna's was well done.
Yeah, okay.
Anna's was fucking creepy.
No, yeah.
Whereas like the rest of them don't make any sense.
The funniest one to me was when Kitty, just like the character of Kitty, she's having a conversation with Lib, and they're talking. Lib walks away,
and Kitty's character literally just goes.
And the narrator starts talking. It's like, and this is a story. Do you remember? There's stories happening. And she just stares into the camera, and her voice is like talking like telepathically.
Yeah,
You're like, what?
And I didn't realize that Kitty was the main narrator or whatever until the end.
Yeah, I see. I didn't figure it out until that scene because she looked at us, and then I was like, oh, I think that's her voice probably.
Yeah.
It was just weird. I don't know.
Hello again. I told you, we are nothing without stories.
So, but I will say, going back to what I was saying before, just having that as the opening scene, because I was like, oh, because not only is it like the opening scene, but like that's the title credits. Like the title, The Wonder, is shown on the film set. So it makes you think like, oh, is this going to be like a part of it? And I didn't hear anything about that from the book. So I was like, oh, maybe the movie's just doing some weird shit with it. I was a little excited. I was like, this almost feels like I'm watching a play. Like you're seeing them move onto the set, the way that opening bit was shot. I was like, okay. So I was back interested. And then the movie kept me pretty interested through most of it because I honestly expected it to play things more like boring, but it was like it played into almost like folk horror and like religious horror and just like the vibe. It was very creepy.
Yeah.
And that is what I liked a lot about it. I thought they were gonna, I honestly was worried it was gonna be more like, oh, look at this miracle from God. And I was like, okay, whatever. But no, they really played it for what it was, which was weird and creepy and disturbing.
Toby said that he really liked it because it played more as like a psychological thriller than like a religion movie.
No, yeah, it's not like being boring with it. It's like actually keeping you engaged with like the thrill and the horror and like the
creepiness. It's so very creepy. Because part of Anna's character is that she recites, I can't remember which prayer it is, but it's a specific prayer, and she recites it 33 times a day, every day. And so like, but you hear essentially a child's voice whispering, reciting this prayer in a dark room. It's so creepy.
It was funny because at first I wasn't 100% sure if the movie was trying to make it creepy, just because I was like, I think at one point I wrote down, I'm like, is the movie wanting me to be creeped out, or is this just like my religious trauma? I can't tell.
Literally same.
And as slowly as it went on, I was like, okay, no, so it is supposed to be creepy.
Yeah,
good.
no, it is.
Yeah, I just think it's
creepy in the book too.
Okay, that's good. It makes sense. Yeah. I think ultimately where the movie started like losing me a little bit was more just after the reveal of whether or not she is faking. From then on, I felt like the way that they handled like character conclusions didn't hook me. And my number one thing I think throughout is that I felt Lib as a protagonist kind of bored me. I liked watching her because Florence Pugh is phenomenal and she's really good in the movie, but like her actual character writing did not compel me. Her relationship with Anna never really felt as genuine to me. I didn't feel like the connection was there. And I think that's what held me back from truly being like, yes, I loved the conclusion, because the characters just felt very half-baked to me.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about in the differences between the movie and the book. So the biggest issue for me between the movie and the book that differentiated each other was, and spoiler warning, as if you don't know you're getting spoiled before coming into the podcast, was that it is revealed in the movie and in the book that Anna receives her manna from heaven from her mother, who feeds her by kissing her on the mouth and like spitting food into her mouth, which icked me out when I read the book too. Not because that's weird, because that is weird, but because it's like, if people are watching you do this, are you like tongue kissing your mom where like she could do that? Like, like what is happening?
Weird. Did her mom just like also never like speak during any of those until they saw her, I guess? Yeah. So, but she would like, the way that it was played is she would like turn her back. And so Lib never actually saw their face. So, but the difference between the book and the movie is that in the movie, Lib is like, you are not allowed to come near her. You are not allowed to touch her. And then that's when Anna starts starving because her mom isn't able to give her a kiss, right? Yeah.
In the book, Anna starts refusing her mom's kiss.
Really? Okay, that's really interesting though.
Right. So which is, it adds a whole different perspective. So the mom comes in. So Lib does say something along the lines of, you know, I want you to stay away from her. There can be no like coming near her. And the mom is like, but a mother's kiss is sacred. And Lib kind of like concedes and is like, okay, I guess that's fine. And then after a couple days, Anna starts refusing the kiss, which I think is very important for Anna's character because it is her choice to starve herself. That's what leads into more of a suicidal kind of take on it, as opposed to this is a situation she's being forced into. It's more of a mental health crisis than like only being predatorily exploited.
No, that actually sounds like a way better. I'm not gonna lie. That phenomenal.
Because the mom starts panicking when she starts refusing her kisses.
See, that's like a whole different layer of nuance to it too. Oh yeah, because I did think it was like a little annoying because with like Lib in the movie, it was like all kind of pinned on her. They're like, you're the one who wanted them to be separate, so if she starves now, that's on you. And it's like,
but that's not her fault, right? And so that was the biggest thing. That was the difference. That was the problem. The other thing that was the difference is that riddles is a huge part of the book. So you know how Will's character it starts asking Anna riddles, right?
And Will is like kind of love interest-ish.
He is the love interest. So in the book, Lib and Anna tell each other riddles. So she takes her on her daily walks to get her exercise, sees how her body is moving, whether or not she's starving, that kind of thing. And Lib starts telling Anna riddles to help pass the time, and that's honestly how their relationship starts to form, and like how Lib starts having like feelings, like motherly feelings towards this girl, is because she gets to see Anna's intelligence firsthand, and you get to explore kind of more of her thought process.
See, that's also much more interesting.
Exactly.
I won't lie. Yeah, those both sound like things that would have probably made me like the characters more.
Another thing that is different is, sorry, I'm rambling. If you like Caleb's voice, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm interested to hear.
So in the movie, Lib has a drug addiction. When she takes the medicine from the bottle, gets super high, and then that's never in the book. There's no like major drug addiction.
They just add. I mean, I did like those scenes a little bit. I didn't actually like think of it as a drug addiction, to be honest. I didn't really like rationalize it in my head. I just was like, oh yeah. Wow.
No, it was like opium. And it's
that makes a lot. I was very confused in those scenes actually, and I think that's why I got like thrown off for a second.
Because that's like wait. That's part of Lib's character as a whole. Is she's like a very prudent woman who like isn't religious, because you think of like religious purity and like being stubborn and stuff like that, but that's not who this character is. She isn't the drug addict. She isn't the she doesn't have sex with Will in the book. She has a panic attack because he kisses her, and then she's like, but I'm here on a job. Like it's one of those, like she's a very like strict on herself, very prudent woman.
Interesting.
Who starts like her entire character progression is around Anna, where like this little girl has inspired her to go against what she knows about like the relationship between a patient and a nurse, and wants to like help her. Whereas that's like not something that she would normally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That does seem like okay. Then I have one other question.
Okay.
What about Will's character? Is he anything more in the book? Because I felt like he's just
a lot more charming in the book.
Okay. I did also immediately, for the first big chunk of time in the movie, I was icked out by him a little bit.
Yeah, I was too. Weird, and I loved him in the book. And so I was like,
yeah, the way that, he was portrayed a little weird. I was just like, as soon as this guy comes in, I'm like, this guy is
he says something where he's like, oh, so you're eating for two.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, this is not the Will that I know.
It was just like awkward too.
Another huge difference between the book and the movie is that Will is on board for the plan at the end.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So because they start having a relationship, they start falling. Yeah. She doesn't beg him to come with her. She proposes this idea to him.
Yeah, it's like a mutual.
As a mutual thing. And he's like, you could get arrested, right? And she's like, I know, but I need to save this little girl. And he's like, Where do I sign up?
Damn.
Which I think is a big...
We stand
right.
book will. Yeah, because in the movie too, it's like they're arguing. He's like, I don't know, I don't think I want to do that. And then next time we see him, he's just like taking the family photo.
Right.
Like, well, I guess he did.
Well, it was a very weird, and like in the book, their relationship progresses a lot more naturally, where in the movie it was like they like hated each other and then they were like having sex like one scene later.
It's just he wasn't in the movie enough for me to be, I don't know, he was like in this weird amount where he's there enough where he's like a constant presence, but also not there enough where I could buy his relationship at all. Like I genuinely did not think that he was meant to be a love interest at all. Like I just thought he was an extra character, and then all of a sudden they're like fucking, and I'm like, wait, well, oh, that's what he is. I wouldn't have got that from the vibes. Maybe it was just because I was creeped out by him, but it just felt weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was like the way he spoke to her and about her and about the situation, which he does a little bit in the book, where he kind of, it seems kind of predatory, where he wants to like use her to get to Anna, and then they end up like falling in love.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I think those are pretty much the major differences between the book and the movie that I wanted to bring up. So now we can kind of more dive into the movie.
The movie as a whole.
As opposed, if something else comes up, of course I'll say it, because that's how my little pea brain works. But that's mostly the main differences.
Do we want to talk just like Anna's character herself?
Yes.
Because I do think
she's a very interesting character.
Yeah, and I think that's like the whole movie kind of relies on her, and I think that's the biggest strength of the movie, is that she is very fascinating and well fleshed out.
Okay, one
actually.
So Anna in the book is a lot more childish. I was a little bit thrown off by the fact that this like the movie version of her looked like she was 14, 15 and instead of like 11, which she is in both the book and the movie, but
I
she's
didn't
like,
remember that she was 11.
Yeah, she's 11 years old.
Okay, whack. She was just, it was interesting how creepy they made her.
Right.
She creeped the shit out of me.
She's so creepy.
Children just creep me out already, so then having an extra creepy child is just like triple creepy. It was scary. Also, her pupils were often very dilated, and that was throwing me off. I was like, okay. But it was interesting that they played her a little more for horror at first. But I do think, like, since we're following an outsider's perspective, it does actually kind of make it more interesting, because it is like a little creepy how she's talking so much about like religion and God. And
that's her entire life.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
so essentially, what happens is we find out that Anna's brother essayed her for 3 years up until his death. Another big difference, again, my bad, G, is that in the book it's explained that not only did this happen, but on her brother's deathbed, because they were forced to share a room and a bed. That's kind of how this essay was brought about. But because he was dying, he was so cold all the time, Anna's mother made her sleep in bed with him while he was dying to give him warmth. And so he died in her arms, essentially, in bed with her.
That's a yikes.
It's super yikes.
Yeah, I mean that whole and the way that the mother was kind of, because it wasn't that she was like basically blaming like
in the movie, yes.
In the movie, not in the book. Okay.
In the book, Lib goes to Anna's mother and tells her and is like, hey, did you have any idea that this happened? And Anna's mother essentially is like, we don't speak ill of the dead. Which again, it doesn't place the blame on anyone else except for like Anna's mental health.
Yeah.
Because in the book, she's the one who stops wanting the manna from her mom. And then she also, like, no one told her really that this was a big problem. So the way that she found out that incest was a sin is there was a traveling preacher who came around and gave a whole talk about incest being a sin. And that's what sparked the idea in Anna's head that her brother was in hell.
That once again just sounds much more interesting.
Exactly. Because then at the end, you also find out that the priest knew. Because he was trying to talk to Anna and say that she was going to get forgiven. But then she started the fast because she was convinced she needed to save her brother from hell.
See, yeah.
It's a lot more nuanced.
I was very confused with her mother as well, now that I'm thinking about it, because her mother is, as we've established, she was feeding her like by kissing her and all that stuff. Like she was the one keeping her alive by basically, and Anna was just like, oh yeah, this is manna from heaven as she's being fed by her mom, right? But then after they've stopped, she's like, Lib begs her to be like, hey, can you like feed her again, please? And then her mom's just like, nah, it's too late. She's just gonna die. Like she just gives up. And I'm like, wait, but so then why? I didn't. I'm like, so you are horrible. I thought maybe that you had something you wanted to keep her alive. And then she's like talking like she's blaming her for the essay that occurred, and it's just like.
I think the interesting thing about Rosaline O'Donnell, which is the mom's name, is that she believes that both of her children are martyrs, and so it wasn't that she thought her children, the way that the movie played it is that she thought her children had sinned so much that they needed to go to extremes in order to both make it to heaven, and that heaven was the big deal. No, she wanted to be the mom who unfortunately had 2 children pass. Like she wanted to be like the victim in the situation.
Okay. Yeah.
So that, and the reason that, like the priest and the landlord and stuff like that were so willing to go along and they caused this watch to begin with is because they wanted her to be named as a saint.
Yeah. They literally had like started this watch pretty much just with like, hey, she is gonna, like, they wouldn't even accept when Lib was like, so I've seen her mother's doing this. They're like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
You're lying. Just like getting gaslit. I think that was also, and it's funny because normally I'm not like this with movies. This was a rare occasion where it's like I was getting so frustrated with like all the characters and everything that I was just getting frustrated with the movie itself. Even though it's like obviously they're supposed to be frustrating, but it made me like start getting actually annoyed.
No, it's very frustrating reading it too, because there's like conversations with each of the major players where it's Lib's like, hey, this is what the fuck is going on. Is anyone going to step in and save this little girl's life? And essentially all of them put up this barrier and they're like, no, she's holy, she's a saint, she, it's, and they bring religion into the forefront of it. And finally, so the way that the movie ends is essentially Lib kidnaps Anna. She convinces her that Anna is going to die, which I don't think she actually convinces Anna. I think she just gave Anna a way out, like mentally, where she was like, hey, what if Anna dies, and Anna dies right now, and then Non comes
It almost felt a little like a DID sort of thing. I don't think it actually like full on was, but it kind of reminded me of that.
Well, because I think that Anna didn't want to die, but she had been so stubborn about this whole time that like Lib coming forward and being like, hey, this is your way out. Yeah. She just took it.
Gives like a way to kind of repress the trauma and separate yourself from it, which I think is good. And especially I think if she is like getting all of her like knowledge about like heaven and like what she should be, what's wrong, what isn't from like other people, this is like another, like she's offering up this knowledge of like, this is something you can do to try to like get her away from it. I think
and then she kidnaps Non, who is Anna,
lights it all,
and she lights the house on fire.
Girl boss.
And the reason she does that is so no one asks where the body is.
I think that her move there was, I would have gone about it a little differently though, just with her excuse about the fire where she's like, no, I just knocked something over.
I would have gone with like, oh, she was brought up to heaven by like,
No, I was like, she was dying and then she burst into flames, right? And like give them what they wanted and get her away. And then you're pretty much good. They got what they wanted. You probably would still get paid.
But she like didn't care about getting paid. She was like, fuck it.
Hey,
also like the nun, the whole movie where she's just like an awful character, and then at the very end is just like, so I saw a vision, right? And I saw Anna being taken away by an angel on horseback. She's going to a better place, right?
I was also thrown by that, but maybe it was just because we didn't spend enough time with the nun, because I was like throughout the whole movie she's actively like enforcing this she is the one that they asked. They're like, so you seen this kiss thing happen where the mother's feeding her, and she's like, nope, never saw it.
But I think that that's a gender play because she's a nun. Yeah. And so she can't speak out against men.
And the priest is like one of the people there as well. That's fair.
And so she has to like follow along with that. And so, but in the book, you like hate her as well. Okay. But in the book, it's a lot more obvious when she's like, she went on to a better place, right?
Yeah. See, I think the characters, I just didn't connect enough that I could like really follow. Like something like that, it just mostly feels like this like side character who's been doing one thing just switches, and you're like, oh yeah, that is like a change, but we don't really know them enough.
You don't know why.
Yeah. It's just like all, which is weird too, because I also feel like, especially towards the end, it dragged a little bit. So it's strange that like for me, it was almost like the characters.
Too fast.
Yeah, it was like, it went by too fast for like some of the character stuff and wasn't touched on enough, but also dragged on. And it was just like weird, which is again, I still am more positive than not. But
I feel like it's more of like a, you don't know what's going on in the nun's head the whole time.
Yeah.
Cause I don't feel like it's like more explained or anything like that, but you just see kind of the barriers that are put in front of this character because of the duties that she performs for the church.
Yeah.
And you realize that like, she had this girl's interest at heart this whole time, even though you think she didn't. But she just like is bound by the duties of her profession.
Yeah. It's interesting. I will say also slightly unrelated to that, but just in general, I liked the portrayal of, I don't know, like the way that she was, I thought the way that she was like checking for like the eating disorder stuff, like finding if there's like food everywhere. And then also the way that they handled like this little girl's trauma and everything. I felt like all of those triggers kind of were very tactfully handled.
Yeah.
So that like just popped into my head. I think that's like one of the movie's biggest strength is I think it does handle a lot of that with nuance and care. And I think that is the big positive of the movie.
I think the one downfall that they had is they had a scene where Lib's character tries putting the tube down Anna's throat. That does not happen in the book.
I skipped that.
Did you really?
No, it made me too uncomfortable, so I actually fast forward. I'm not gonna lie, I don't do that too often, but I don't know, for some reason that just like got me. I was like, nope,
I think I even wrote in my notes, I wrote, "This is all wrong."
No, yeah. I think so. She didn't end up actually fitting. Okay. At first, I honestly thought she did, and then I was like, "Wait, no." And then I picked it up after that she didn't, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have actually skipped that scene." That kind of fucked me a little bit.
No, it's fine. Yeah. It was a lot to watch, but I think that's the one instance where I don't feel like it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I wrote, she doesn't force her.
Okay. See, yeah, I did think that was a very weird behavior from her character too. Like, I don't know. It's just.
They made her more of a loose cannon in the movie as opposed to, because in my opinion, and maybe this is totally wrong, but I felt like her and the nurses or the nun's character were two sides of the same character, but given different backgrounds.
In the book or in both, or
in the
movie?
Specifically in the book.
Okay.
Because in the movie they made her more of a loose cannon. They gave her a drug addiction. They had her have sex on screen. They had a scene of her masturbating. They had her like losing her temper and like forcing this child to force this child to eat. Where in the book, it's the nun and Lib's character are very similar. It's just that one of them was brought up by science and the other one was brought up by religion.
Which I like a lot more as well.
Exactly.
I feel like it's a lot more thematically cohesive.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like by the end of the movie, I just didn't really get Lib's character a whole lot. Just in that, like, I kept thinking they were going to like really like let me understand a lot more about her. And like we did get more information about her for sure. Like she constantly is dropping exposition where she'll be like, by the way, I had a husband and a baby for a little amount of time. And like she'll give us information, but I still never really felt like I understood her just because of how varied her character was. Like in some sequence she'd be fully level-headed. In other ones she'd be acting more the little
see, and that was one of the biggest like downfalls I thought that the movie had was you didn't get to see, because essentially she's just like repressed all of this, all of the circumstances that happened to her, and she's just repressed it, and then she sees essentially the same thing happening to this little girl where like all this guilt and stuff is being put on her, and she is like, fuck that.
It's just, okay.
Also, the horse's name in the book was Polly.
Polly was not done justice.
Exactly.
The real character who lost out. Okay, I want to come back again to the fourth wall thing. Now that we've gone over, we can like talk full movie stuff. What was like? do you know anything about what the fuck that meant or like what it was about?
No.
Okay.
I wrote specifically about the my first note that I have written down is super weird fourth wall break.
Yeah.
Because it is.
It's bizarre.
And then like 1 page later, I wrote, I'm still thrown off by the intro. Was it just not artsy enough? Like I didn't,
it's just,
it felt like a cheap way to make something artsy that already is artsy in its own right. Like I think they did a really good job playing into the like psychological thriller horror aspect of everything. Specifically, I was so excited to see how the movie handled the portrait of the son.
Yeah.
And how they like painted his eyes on and how he was dead when the picture was, it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And I was really excited to see how they were going to handle that. And so, but like, that in of itself is artsy. It's already, like you said, it's folk horror. It's this whole thing. It's giving Resident Evil 7. You know what I'm saying? But like,
but it just because it'd be one thing if they like had a really grand purpose for it,
but it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Have you seen any other work by this director?
I don't believe so. Let me double check. Because I did see something about the director, but I can't remember if I actually have.
His name is Sebastian Leon or something like that.
Yeah. Let's see. Sebastian or Lelio?
Lelio?
I think it's Lelio, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, it is Lelio. Sebastian Lelio Watts. Yeah, he's directed Gloria and A Fantastic Woman. Yeah, I don't think I've seen either of those. So probably I don't think I have. I feel like I've heard of a couple of his movies, but I've not seen any of them.
I wanted to kind of talk to you about the movie industry as a whole and just say that like this feels like a really weird choice to make as a Netflix film. And so I was wondering if you had any insight on that.
Not a whole lot other than I think Netflix is their a lot of their business strategy is there an IP we can grab? Give us any IP. Do you have an IP? Can I buy an IP from you? And I think they probably were just like had contacts with publishing companies and were like, hey, yo,
but
anything
this movie
you can
isn't, or this book isn't new. You know what I mean?
No, I mean,
like
I think it was probably something they got for super cheap. And then they saw maybe the director or someone on board was like passionate about it. And they're just like, all right. Because I don't think it had that high of a budget, so it probably wasn't a huge risk. Let me see. Let's look up The Wonder budget because I can't imagine it was that much. Okay, it was a little more than I thought. It was $20 million. Still not a whole lot though. And for Netflix
Pocket
especially,
change.
I mean for Netflix, they don't make that much money in realistic sense. But they do spend a lot of money on movies, and I think $20 million is for them just like whatever. We'll throw it at. We'll see
if it sticks.
I can only assume though that they had the IP just like lying around for like years, and like the rights were just kind of tossed around, and then the only reason it probably got made is because someone on board was like passionate about getting it done. Probably, maybe. But Netflix is also just like they will literally shit anything out that they think.
But it also seems weird that like, you know, they got Florence Pugh for the movie. They got what's the name of the actor who plays the Doctor? Oh, he's very famous.
He is. I can't remember his name, but I know he's from Captain America and some other things.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep like looking things up now at this point. I think he plays Arnim Zola in Toby Jones.
Like they got some big name actors in it.
Like the director, although I haven't seen his other works, I mean, he's really good, I think, as like visually. Like, I mean, obviously it's partly with the cinematography as well. I thought the movie looked very good, and it looks like most of his films are very critically acclaimed. This one maybe a little less so than the others. So I mean, they did have a good crew with it. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it's just strange. It is weird that it's a Netflix movie. This almost feels like something like A24 would do. Because Room, I think, was an A24 movie.
Was it?
Yeah.
No, it definitely felt very A24. I was thinking that while watching it, especially with the weird fourth wall break at the beginning. Yeah. I was like, that's the kind of shit that like fucking Azari would do.
I feel like the movie feels like Netflix trying to do art house.
Yes.
Which I don't think they quite have the
They don't get
grasp.
it.
Yeah.
And like, I don't get it either. But like, even I could see that like this was not.
Yeah,
it's art housey enough as it is. If you just kept the story the same, and you played into those nuances pieces that we already discussed. Like you would have already had an amazing psychological thriller, religious trauma piece.
You don't need to add more just to like be extra. Like we had this conversation, I think, briefly in our Shutter Island episode about like Pretentious, and I was like, it's very rare that I think things are pretentious. I don't usually think it's a negative thing. This is one of those cases where like the fourth wall breaks, I felt were slightly like
pretentious.
Yeah, they were. I think they were kind of pretentious. And I remember I was like looking online to see if anyone had like interpretations, like what does anyone have?
But the issue is that this book is named, or this movie is named The Wonder. And again, if you try to look up anything about it,
oh my gosh,
it's kind of the same thing as like you know, when the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey movie came out, it's like
the fantabulous misadventures of one Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey.
Right, like it's a very weird title, especially if you're trying to market a movie.
Oh yeah. It's like it took me a while before I found anything, and even when I did, the couple of articles I saw that had some interpretations also just felt very pretentious, and I was like, okay, is this really like, yes, because Kitty, you know, she's the real, this is all through her eyes, and this,
no, it's not.
They're like, so the girl didn't actually get saved at the end. That's all her made up belief of what happened. And I'm like, where are you getting this from? You're just making up a story now. That has nothing to do with what was in the what? Like, and everything I was just reading just felt so over-explaining to try to be like, yes, because we understand. This makes perfect sense, and it explains that this isn't a real movie. It's just a story. And I was like, I mean, huh? Like, none of it made any sense to me, and I just think
the only thing that I can think of about like the interpretations of this all being about stories and stuff like that is if it's trying to play against the Bible and say like, you know, the Bible, people take the Bible for fact, but it's really just made of stories, so here's another story.
That makes a lot more sense than the shit I was, especially because the middle of the movie Kitty Fourth Wall Break is right after she specifically has a discussion with Florence Pugh's character about how her like notebook is its own Bible. She's like, that's your Bible, I have my Bible, we're the same. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's the same, but sure. But I mean, since there is a fourth wall break literally seconds after that discussion, I think that makes perfect sense as a theme. Still, I don't think it's smart.
I don't think it's a great theme. I think that, you know, they already talk about, they kind of play religious trauma up in this book a lot, and talking about, especially like as an audience member or as a reader, like seeing the logic behind these other characters and why they're allowing this little girl to die for the sake of their own piety is it's not funny. I was going to say it's funny. It's not, but it's very interesting, especially when you think in terms of, you know, religion as a whole. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is interesting because it's like stuff like that actually happens. And I remember I was reading a little bit about how, I mean, like Anna, for example, is based off of like a lot of real, I think they're called fasting girls or something. Oh yeah? Yeah, and it's like, it was an actual like historical precedent where like they would try to have girls who convinced, like little girls who are like, oh yeah, I haven't eaten because God is like. Oh yeah, really? It was like an actual like thing. I didn't read enough into it to know if it was like specifically an Ireland thing. I just know that fasting girls was apparently an actual thing. Because I thought it was a form of like religious piety because the famine had just ended. And so it was, you know, Ireland survived because they survived by the grace of God. And so this little girl is surviving from the manna of heaven to show that she doesn't need to eat because she is so holy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they're just trying to use her as a symbol. Exactly. Just taking advantage of her so that they can propagate their impressionable state. Because I feel like using terms like mental health and trauma and stuff is like, it's valid, but it's not the same thing as just things that she has been told, even as far as like her brother goes. Like she didn't know that she was sexually assaulted. She knew that her brother married her and that they were in love, right? Yeah, she was like, it's two different kinds of love. And right, it's double love. Oh, that's what double she said. Love. Yeah, that's what, oh god. So she said that before she even like went into everything. Right. She goes, double love, and I immediately was like, oh no, don't go there. Oh no. And so I think that this little girl is just so impressionable. And I think it kind of comments on the fact that, like, you know, when there's been this like resurgence of talking about little kids as being so polite or so well behaved or so, and there's actually like trauma behind there of being like their needs aren't being fulfilled, and therefore they're going to like take care of themselves. I think, I don't know.
It's very interesting. I don't know. I think I do think that's curious.
Both you and I have a decent amount of religious trauma.
A little bit. We've been around the block a little bit. We've done some wilding.
And I think being able to see this from like an outsider perspective of two people who aren't religious in really any sense, we can kind of see it and be like, wow, this is fucking crazy.
I think was refreshing, because I really did think, and I probably shouldn't have, because you were reading this beforehand, so that should have been my hint that it wasn't going that route. But I just had the impression that, like,
I mean, I did I did read that book about the Amish family.
That's true.
Because okay, this is a little tangent, but I love finding really niche genres of books and then reading a book from that. Like, I fucking love it. So like a couple Amish of the ones,
books.
so like Amish Romance is one. I've only read one, and it was fine for what it is.
Yeah.
It was very God heavy.
Yeah. And there's like all the pie murder ones.
Yes,
well,
it's
right?
like bakery cozy murder mysteries. Is its whole own a subset. I'm super into it. Honestly, and then there was another one that you and I were talking about, but I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember what it was either. Yeah, you. She's always just randomly texting me. She's like, I found some weird ass genre. I'm like, all right, I like look into it. I'm like, this is fucking weird. Okay,
right? Yeah. And there's like so much, like especially like the murder mystery, like pie.
There's like hundreds and hundreds. It's insane.
There's multiple series that are like major.
It's just its own genre. Like, it's a full ass. Lots of people are like, yes, I need to write my own entry in the pie murder genre.
Because I
can add something here.
Cozy mysteries is its own genre, where it's like, it's a murder mystery. It's supposed to give you that taste of true crime, but without being overtly graphic or detailed. So it's just a little, it's
like a murder mystery if you're wearing like a knit sweater.
Right. It's like a murder mystery for like people who don't want to feel bad at the end. You know what I mean?
I mean, which I can respect, honestly.
And I love
that's
it.
actually
like I
pretty
love
good.
cozy murder mysteries, and like the bakery one. So it's like a drunken pies. You should insert a photo of the drunken pies. I should shout her out. She's super nice, this author.
Oh yeah.
I've only had one interaction with her because she had a novella on her website where it wasn't being released, but if you signed up for her email, she would just send you a copy of the novella for your Kindle.
Yeah.
And the link didn't work for me. And so I just sent an email to her and I was like, hey, the link didn't work for me. I don't know if this was just a limited time promotion, but I'd love to read it. And she responded back and she was like, thank you so much for like being interested in reading it. Here's a link. I'll try to see what's wrong on the website. Like, she's just so nice. That's and so awesome. I feel like we should shout her out. I know you're against shouting people out.
I'll allow it this time. I'll allow it. Sometimes I get a little edgy with it, but
it was really good. It's a drunken pies mystery.
Read it if you like mysteries, coziness, or pie.
Period. So I did want to talk to you a little bit about the cinematography and the lighting specifically.
Okay.
I thought that the lighting was very effective. And there was one scene in particular where I thought the lighting was incredibly effective. And it's the scene, and I wonder if you can find it. If not, it's fine. But they're in Anna's room and everything... Like, you can see Anna in her entirety, but then across her eyes, you can't see.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Oh my God, it's so creepy.
It is. They really do play with a lot of great cinematography and lighting there.
Yes.
I also think the sets were so good.
The sets were beautiful.
I was like just in love immediately.
They were gorgeous. As far as like costuming goes, it was nothing to write home about.
It's just like your standard historical. Period piece.
I did feel like, especially the like scene at the end where Lib is talking to the council and she's wearing that dress.
Yeah.
I thought that was very weird. I didn't like that dress. And she has like her hair down and she looks very disheveled. I didn't like it. Because she like looks totally not put together. She has bags under her eyes. Her hands are burned. She has her hair down, which is super not like her. And then she's wearing this like gorgeous English dress.
Yeah, I do.
Super fucking weird.
It is, that's fair.
But I mean, the rest of the costumes were like, I mean, they were fine.
I mean, as is custom with me on all of these, with all of our movies, I don't notice the costumes. I just think, oh, clothes.
You would notice it if they were wearing jeans. It's an effective part.
True. I mean, if they were just like in like fucking jeans and like t-shirts, it's like the
like
Avengers. They have like an Avengers t-shirt on. You're like, I don't know if this is quite right. Maybe a couple years off here.
Yeah. So I mean, there's all that, and I thought the sound was okay, especially like the score and the music. I thought it was good. I felt like it was kind of like I'm getting kind of bored. You know, like how we watched Don't Worry Darling, and like the kind of chanting was like super effective in that. And then I feel like every movie we've watched since is like the same fucking shit where it's like this like chanting and like this one noise that keeps going over and over again to try to give you this sense of unease. It's the same thing in The Lighthouse. It's probably a me problem because we've just been watching a lot of movies back to back that have that same kind of trope, but I'm getting bored of it.
I think with this movie particularly, I really liked it at first, but they seem to just be reusing the same score,
right?
Like, and especially as like they kept using even after like the twist a little bit, and I was like, okay, it's not really the scary isn't what we should be focusing on as much as more character time. We don't the spooky. Okay, I get spooky vibes. You already played this song like 5 times though. We're good. We got, but yeah, I did think for like the first third of the movie, I really liked the score though, just because initially I was like, okay, mainly because I was caught off guard because I didn't think it was going to be spooky, so. Just spooky vibes in general were great, but I do think it got for sure repetitive, like as it went on, because it's the same thing over and over and over. So, I think this is the time. We're almost here. We are here, actually. It's quote of the movie time, because this movie. I mean, I don't have a ton of quotes, to be honest.
No, I didn't either. Yeah. And plus, like a lot of the really good quotes, there are a lot of very thick Irish accents in this movie, so it makes it kind of hard to like write quotes down.
I think it's the dialogue. Isn't exactly like it's not the quotes on their own don't really bring a lot.
Okay, so what's your first quote?
Okay, first quote. That's a great question. Sorry. Okay. She's a jewel, a wonder. I couldn't help myself. I just died.
I have a why a nun. Welcome to Ireland.
Honestly, I think I have something similar to that with what kind of backwards village imports a professional nurse for something like this? Where I was just like, it's just kind of, I don't know. I thought that was, even though it wasn't played exactly as humorously, I just found it funny.
I also, this is not a quote, but there's a scene in the beginning when she first walks to the house where there is a bunch of waterfowl, and I put jump scared geese. I fucking hate geese. That's fucking funny. It wasn't a Canadian goose, so we were all good. But.
Oh, okay, good. We don't stand Canadian geese.
Yeah,
we like American geese, but worse.
I've been attacked by a goose twice.
I knew a friend of my mother's, I believe, had like their finger bit off by a goose.
See, they're fucking evil.
I mean, yeah, I've never seen a goose that has not been evil. I had one gently caress
my back while I was eating watermelon.
I mean, just as bad, in my opinion.
I mean,
I see them and I go the other way.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm prejudiced against geese.
I am too. They drive me batshit.
They're the worst.
Especially in college, like when I would have to walk between buildings in college. Oh, yeah. There would always be one in my path. And I'd be like, oh, God damn it.
It's just like, no, come on. Not today.
What's the next quote that you have?
I really only have one other that I'm super into. And this one is just because it hit hard for me. It's a very serious, like somber line, but I felt like out of like all the deliveries, this one I felt like hit me the hardest. When she's just like, I will nurse her until she dies, after getting rejected by the council when she's trying to tell them that she's really good. Faking it. Like that just, I was like, oh God, dude. So.
I have another humorous one.
Okay.
It's when she's talking to Anna and Anna's like, anyone could be chosen, sinner or like holy. and she like Lib reveals that she's a widow, and then she's like, ah, yes, the very worst of sins.
Yeah. Okay, I actually do remember. I think I must have missed it, because I wrote down one other that was humorous. We had already actually mentioned this specific bit earlier. I mostly just found it funny. Let me see if I can find it though. Fuck. There it is. Yeah, it was the one where the dude just comes and he's like, "Are you eating for the patient as well as yourself?" And then she just like stares at him for like 10 straight seconds, and he's like, "Okay, that was rude." It's just like, I don't know, because he's just like comes in out of nowhere, says this stupid shit, and then she doesn't even like dignify it with a response. She just stares at him, and that did have me cackling. Leaves. Yeah. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was rude." She just leaves, and you're like, "Okay, I stand you, queen." Like, it wasn't the line as much that was funny there, as much as just her silence, but I did think that was a little humorous.
Here's another quote that I think is pretty good, especially knowing what we know now about what happened to Anna to make her want to do this fast. Is Lib asks her about which one of her saints is her favorite, and she says, "The mystic marriage of Saint Catherine and the baby Jesus. He gave her a wedding ring, but only she could see it. Anyone can be chosen, saints or sinners."
Interesting. That does age, I think, well in retrospect. That's pretty good, yeah. So these are quotes.
Yes. I'm trying to see if there's any other. I think that for being a movie based off of a book, it's not very quotable.
Yeah, which is interesting, because usually it's like you lift those lines, you're like, prose. God tier. I guess not as much prose, but maybe if there's a narrator.
I guess there's this one that kind of plays into the stories. And it says, "It's a great privilege being with people at the end. They talk, they tell their stories."
It's all right.
Yeah, like I said, like it's a good movie, but it's not very quotable.
It really ain't. I think the only one that I think I kind of like of my own is just the "She's a Jewel, a Wonder."
I feel like we have to.
Yeah, it's just too punny.
Yeah.
It just got me. And then it made me think, why wasn't this movie called A Wonder? Because she's a jewel, a wonder. I was like, that's your line.
Because she's an object.
I mean, to them, I guess so. Fuck.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you want to just go with this one then?
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
I don't feel very strongly about any of them.
Yeah. I was like, if I'm gonna pick one, it'd be this one, just because it's probably the one that made me like laugh. And I was like, that's a good one. So there we go. She's a jewel, a wonder. Roll the clip.
She's a jewel. A wonder.
The clip has once again been rolled, as it usually is. And that brings us to final scores, which I have to think about a little bit, because I had one maybe before, but then I forgot what it was, and then I couldn't remember, and now I'm not sure where I want to score it. I feel like, because the thing is, okay, I'm like mostly going to be drawing off Don't Worry, Darling from where I rank this. I'm like, okay, how do I view it in comparison to that? Where should I score it? Because that was a 6. I feel like even though my immediate inclination is to give this a 6, I'm like, I want to give it a little higher because I think it's better than Don't Worry. Maybe like a 6.5 for me.
I was going to give it a 7.
Okay, so we'll go 6.57, equaling out to a 6.75 is our final score. Good final score. Higher than UHF, which I'm salty about, but you know, it's
we
fine.
Don't need to bring this up for
I'm going to be bringing it up. I mean, technically, this is our first episode after that episode.
Okay, all right.
I'm allowed. I've also been talking about this every time I see her.
We actually got into a fight about it.
So
because like when we filmed the podcast, it was so cordial. And then we like talked to my boyfriend about it and David. And then him and David were both like ripping me a new asshole about like how I didn't like UHF. Yeah. And then I was also very hungry. And so I started getting like actually mad because I had not eaten all day. And then afterwards I was like, well, I mean, they're entitled to their opinions. Yeah. And I'm sure I think that's the beauty of this podcast, right? Yeah. Is because we're not looking for an objectively correct answer. Yeah. No. We're talking at it from two different perspectives as two buddies who respect each other's opinion.
Most of them.
And I think that's kind of the beauty of it. And so I stand by my 4.
Sorry, audio listeners, I was twitching a little bit.
I stand by it because that's how I felt, and that's the beauty
fair.
of us
This is
coming together.
Film is a subjective language in
Right.
which we can interpret and speak and converse about.
You know-
Even when one of us may be horribly, horribly wrong and incorrect in that subjective belief. I say so happily. I mean, sorry, I'm just playing it up for the bit a little bit.
It's just not for me. I'm sure it's not a bad movie. I'm not trying to cancel it. I'm not trying to, it's just maybe not for me.
That's fair.
And that's okay.
It is okay. Doesn't mean I can't be salty.
You can be salty about it. I'll let you be salty because
right.
I'm not gonna promise that there's not gonna be a movie that I'm like really passionate about in the future.
Yeah,
I feel like most of the movies that I'm super passionate about and that we have watched together, you also like.
No.
I'm not sure.
I feel like it's honestly,
it's mostly me not liking movies that you like.
It is funny because it's like I often, when there's like a random movie that gets me, I'll be super cynical about it, and then I think some people get the idea that I just like am pretentious about stuff, but I generally, most movies I watch, I do like a good amount of.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to get me to thoroughly hate a movie.
Right.
Like, Spider-Man Far From Home, that's one I can think of that I thoroughly hate.
See, I
Some
like
of the Transformers
that movie.
Like Transformers 5, The Last Night, I hated that one. I feel like there's a third movie I also really hated. Those are like the only ones that can come to mind that I vehemently hated.
There's a lot of movies that I'm just like, I just don't want to watch that right now.
Dumb and Dumber 2, I hate that movie so much. That movie,
because I'm not a very easy person to like just be like, hey, let's throw on a movie and watch it real fast. Like, I need to know that we're gonna be watching a movie.
That's fair.
To like mentally prepare for that.
I can kind of feel that, to be honest. I do definitely. I think in the modern era, this year I don't watch as many movies as I have in like past years, just because I'm busy, and 2.5 hours is often a lot to commit to, which is unfortunate.
There was like, Toby got so mad at me the other day because we were listening to his music and We Don't Talk About Bruno came on, and he was like, let's watch Encanto right now. And I was like, no, like I don't want to watch Encanto like right this second.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, so you'll watch movies for Caleb, but you won't watch movies for me? And I was like, that is not what this is.
Wait,
like,
is that
I'm
how this works?
so
Can I just
sorry.
call you up and get you to watch
Yeah,
things?
no, like ask Caleb.
right.
It is actually impossible to get me to watch movies when you want me to watch
It takes
them.
like weeks of planning. This podcast is finally my chance.
Yes,
that's
to
half
make
the
me-
reason I agreed to do it. I'm just like, I can get Caitlin to watch these movies finally. I have an opportunity.
This seems like a lot of work for you just to make me watch movies.
I'm dedicated to my craft, to be honest. We got Promising Young Woman out of the way. That was one that was in the bin for like a year. So I got a list of others. And luckily, it's my turn to... Oh.
Okay.
Because it's Caitlin's turn today, right? That's how this...
So, it's supposed to be your turn.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
And here's why. Okay, listen. There was one movie, as soon as I saw that it was coming out, I'm like, oh, we gotta talk about this on the podcast. But it's a Christmas movie, and we are only, because we went to a bi-weekly schedule, which is not my fault. We will only have one more episode go up before Christmas.
Yeah.
And so I asked Caleb if it would be okay if I took another turn and picked another movie, and then he can do 2.
I get to do 2 in a row.
Yes.
It's my time to shine. Back to back.
Yay.
I'm excited for that. What's the movie, though? I actually do not remember what
It is called Falling for Christmas.
Oh, it's like a Hallmark movie.
It is a Hallmark.
Yeah.
It's like a Hallmark kind of movie.
All right.
It is starring Lindsay Lohan.
We
It is
stand.
her first debut of acting since her comeback.
Speaking of Lindsay Lohan, sorry, just because that popped in my head and I saw this yesterday. Did you know she was starred in a commercial for Pilk? Pepsi and milk? I saw that on my timeline and I was like, why did she do that? Oh, God, no, please, no. Nope.
I also saw an ad for warm Dr. Pepper.
Ugh.
Where it's like Dr. Pepper and you heat it up. It's supposed to be like a winter beverage and then you put like citrus in it.
Nasty.
Disgusting.
Mostly we stand Lindsay Lohan minus the Pilk.
The Pilk.
But yeah, so it's basically just a standard sorta.
It's just a feel good little
Alright.
Christmas movie. It's a
You're gonna,
little
like,
it's a little
trick me and
holiday
it's gonna
romance.
be like a big twist halfay through where they all die.
That would be
setting
a
me
real
up
big
for-
trick because I wouldn't I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited.
I just love real good, feel good Christmas movies, and you should be lucky that there's only one. That I only get one option.
I am sad that I don't get a Christmas movie this year, but it's all right. What's your thought on the Polar Express?
I hate it.
Okay, that makes sense. That would have been my pick.
Oh,
it's my
really?
favorite Christmas movie.
Oh. I mean, it's so good.
I had a feeling that would probably be your take because it's a very divisive movie. People either love it or fucking hate it. I think more people hate it that I've met than not.
So it was one of those Christmas movies that I watched every year growing up, but I never liked it. Like my mom loved that movie, and so we would watch it every year, just as part of our like Christmas bracket and of movies we'd watch. And I was always like, fuck. It's time to watch The Polar Express.
Damn.
I do think that it like I would watch it. Like I'm not like vehemently. You know how some people are about Elf, where they're like, I fucking hate Elf. I wish Elf would just go fucking like. I love Elf. Elf is my favorite Christmas movie, and that's fine. No. I actually don't. Yeah. You can hate Elf as much as you want because I didn't like UHF, and I feel like this is our compromise.
I won't lie. I like to dunk on Elf as much as I can. I actually think it's a good movie. I just hate how people are obsessed with it.
I am.
That's my religious trauma. Actually, I'll say that it's in theme. For my youth groups I went to as a child, every year, any church event that was for kids, they would show the same fucking Elf movie. Everyone went crazy. It was their favorite thing. I'd watch that movie like 3 times every holiday, and that was the only thing they watched.
I also watched it 3 times every holiday, but that's because I wanted to watch it.
I was forced into it.
I loved it. It's my favorite Christmas movie, followed very closely behind by Nightmare Before Christmas, which I watch starting in August, and then I typically watch it about 3 to 4 times a year.
That's fair. Well, stay tuned for next year when we finally talk about the Polar Express, because I guarantee you in a year from now, that'll be a great episode.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I could ramble about Polar Express for ages. There's so much cool shit about that movie.
I am very excited to learn, because as far as I know, it's just like kind of boring and also slightly terrifying. But like, I love, like, it started the like Christmas bell tradition. And I love that tradition. I love having, we always hang like a little silver bell on our tree. Yeah. And like, I'm not like vehemently against. I just don't personally like it that much.
We'll find out in a year. But for now, next week we're watching Falling for Christmas with Lindsay Lohan. Gonna be peak ? Maybe we'll find out.
I think it's gonna be cute.
Is it gonna be as good as A Prince for Christmas, or A Princess for Christmas, or a Princess Switch for Christmas?
No, we almost watched The Princess Switch because that is one of my other favorite Christmas movies. Just the first one though. The rest of them are garbage, but the first one I really like.
Fair enough. That's a little sus, but okay. I mean, I guess I haven't seen enough of them. I've seen clips, and that's all I
watched it. So in addition to exclusively Barbie movies, when I got my wisdom teeth out, I also watched that movie like 4 times.
I respect it. You know, that's the move.
Because I was high on like drugs.
As one does.
With painkillers.
We love to see it. All right. We've rambled a lot in this final bit since our scores, so I apologize for the extra length bump, but also, you love to listen to our voices. It's fine. And we love to listen to each other's voices, which is actually the real reason that we're still talking to this very second. But with that, we should probably start like bidding you adieu and the things of that nature.
Yeah. Follow us on all of our socials. Link will be in the description below. Will this be the week that I start posting on our social medias?
Who knows?
You should go follow to find out.
That's the real twist.
But other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And stay safe out there. And we will see you next week. Oh, wait. 2 weeks from now.
Well, we're ending the podcast.
If we did it every week still, that you would get a Christmas pick.
I know, that was my sacrifice. And that's also why it was like, yes, Caitlin can pick, because I made that choice. Okay. Take it upon myself. Anyway, time to edit this episode in a very short amount of time. No sleep.
Bye.